straw also embedded in glass.
Right, right. So it changes.
So somehow these things.
It changes the molecular structure maybe of some material that are within this eye of the storm, if you will, then maybe.
Yes, apparently. But I mean, there has been a prediction by one of these people coming out of a near-death experience that around 2012 there will be a massive breakthrough in physics.
Okay.
So it could be that whole. I mean, that also could be applied to one of McKenna's favourite theories was that in 2012 time machines are constructed for the first time. So suddenly all the time machines from the future will suddenly appear on these leisure trips back into the past, but they won't be able to go beyond the point where time machines were invented.
Oh, that's awesome. I know also that McKenna, of course, Terence McKenna talked about AI, for instance, as well. You know, when we approach the point where we can, create, if you will, intelligences, that this will be, and a very weird experience, to say the least. And I think he attributed that almost to be similar to meeting an ET. You know, that this is going to be so foreign for us when this finally, communicates with us in whatever way it will, and that consequently could also change very much our technological process, of course. If this machine comes online and consequently helps or decides not to help us and go in the opposite side, things could dramatically change,
Yeah, and he was speaking also, I mean, from personal experience, really, because during his experiences on DMT, he actually described in detail his encounters with these creatures that he called tykes, or self-transforming machine elves of hyperspace, which he says you go, in his experience of this, he'd go down into a sort of down a tunnel into a sort of an underground space that's lit from you can't quite tell where, and it's full of these creatures that are like jewel-encrusted basketballs that are all chirping and squeaking, and they all rush up to you and try and communicate, and they encourage you to use your voice. And as you use your voice, you start to produce little sort of Fabergé egg-like encrusted jewel-filled objects, and you present them to these creatures, and they know exactly what you mean.
Oh my God!
I mean, that just sounds balmy, doesn't it? Really, but I mean, so coming from that perspective, I can see what he means by that.
Yeah, okay, fascinating. Yeah, we have so much more to talk about, and our first hour is almost up here soon, and I want to begin to round things off here before we continue talking more in our second segment, in our member section. But I do want to talk a little bit more about your book before we do that. So tell us a little bit about Beyond 2012, some of the things that you go into. I'd reckon that most of the stuff we've been talking about here today is things that you bring up in the book. Is that correct, Geoff?
Yes, it is. There's one or two little things that have happened since the book came out, but I hadn't actually got into that in this discussion yet. But yes, I talk. I've sort of split the book into 4 parts. It starts talking, because most people are keyed into this with the Maya calendar. I start the book off by explaining how the Maya calendars work, and then goes into tribal prophecies, not just of the Maya, but various other tribes from all over the world who have prophecies that seem to correlate pretty exactly with this time we're in, and in some cases they actually mention 2012 specifically. Then it goes into other calendars that seem to concur with this, and then it goes into McKenna's I Ching and how that was all calculated, which is fairly complex. And then it just the last chapter of part 1 is about the Abrahamic religions, which is how all this fits in with the 3 religions of Abraham. That's Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And yes, there's some surprises there as well. And then the second part is about 2012 theories, and it goes into sunspot cycles and various astronomical cycles that people have tied in and tried to explain the whole Maya calendar and the timing of it and everything with various astronomical phenomena. Then alternative archaeology, that's the findings of people who've been looking at, people like Hancock and Beauval who've been looking at the Giza pyramids, and they've tied that into the Maya calendar in 2012, and other people who've sort of developed those mainly alternative Egyptian archaeology ideas where they've tied in Egypt. And I cover the work of Patrick Gerrell and Gino Ratings as well, who you may have come across, although I do actually disagree with them. I found two areas where I disagree with them, and I think that they've made an error. So from my perspective, that's kind of it's derailed their whole theory as far as I'm concerned.
maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in the next segment, because that's interesting, I think. Yeah.
Anyway, after that, I talk about the geomagnetic field changes and about the Milankovitch cycle, which is ice cycles, and then ice cores that indicate that around 3114 BC there was a big climate change, so that maybe the end of the beginning of the long count calendar was based on a sort of geomagnetic or a geological boundary. And I go into fringe science, where people take science a little bit further beyond where it's normally taken to talk about 2012. And in part 3, talk about shamanism, the various kinds of altered states of consciousness that people have gone into via various kinds of sacred plants and drugs, and other altered states with out-of-body experiences, meditation, past life recall, and then I talk about the alien abductions and other phenomena to do with UFOs, where that's sort of spin-offs of that have been applied to 2012, and then crop circles, where people have applied various meanings to crop circles that are significant to 2012.
Yes.
And then it goes into the secret government, that's the Montauk project, basically, with remote viewing. And then I look at the prophecies of Nostradamus, and then I look at some various, where things have got a little bit wacky in some of the New Age theories. And that's where I include Carl Kalleman's material there, and some of Jose Arguelles' perspectives also. And then the final part is called the diagnosis, where I split it into an analysis, a synthesis, and a prognosis, where I go through what we've looked at throughout the book and sort of analyse it and see if it holds together. But I also bring in some new material, a lot of it to do with ancient perspectives from Neolithic people, which seems to sort of help explain it all.
Interesting. We have much to talk about here in the next segment, but again, the book is called